Yo, welcome back to the Red or Blue Pill channel, people. Thank you for returning subscribers and members. What we do here, if you are new, is we react to the most disturbing and creepy videos from the internet and we go through the latest. If you like what you see, don't forget to sub up, turn on the notifications, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. With that being said, let's roll.
Video is for entertainment purposes only.
Donald Trump is always leaving us clues, and the clues are for those with the eyes to see. However, they are becoming so much more obvious now. It's allowing more people to start looking for themselves to see these are matching up. What is matching up? Donald Trump and Q posts. We will all soon get taken back to the Q posts to revisit all the information that was posted back in 2017 all the way up to 2022. Close to 5,000 posts. A lot of reluctancy when it comes to it. However, there's no such thing as coincidences. So Donald Trump puts out a post today about the fake news. And at the end of the post, it says, these people are sick. Well, that's a phrase from the Q posts. So we go to, these people are sick, and it takes you to June the 28th, exactly the same day. And it says, what is coming? Do they really believe this will ever be swallowed? Will the progressive left defend and support these actions once those guilty are brought to the light? These people are sick. They do not love this country. It matches up. But we also have another phrase that's also used on the Q posts. Donald Trump's talking about the big, beautiful bill. And within this post, he mentions the word, the precipice. And there's a lovely amount of posts with the precipice on. We can go back to one. The swamp runs deep. Sometimes you cannot tell people the truth. You must show them. Only then at the precipice will people find the will to change. We, the people, have been betrayed for a very long time. Will you stand for God and country, for freedom, for humanity? Where we go one, we go all. Q. So they're all matching up. They're leaving us clues, and it's confirming that this is the truth. So if you're still yet to go on it, I encourage you, go have a little play for yourself and see what comes up.
Yeah, the Q posts are an interesting one. I'm not too sure what to make of it. There seems to be a lot of things that have been rewritten, as in scripted, and you can see what they've said years before, from what I can tell. But it's like everything else; it doesn't really matter because you still might be going on a wild goose chase. You don't know who's set this all up. It could be just another psyop. You don't really know, do you? But people just start working out these, hidden in plain sight things, and they think they're on something, but it could just be all part of it as well. You know what I mean? Or it could be genuine. I don't know. Let me know what you think.
Now, before I start this video, this is for educational purposes only. It seems to be like the TikTok thing to say so I don't get taken off. So Elon Musk just tweeted, follow the white rabbit, and I'm going to tell you the deeper meaning of that. So you guys know the Disney cartoon that was made around 1951 called Alice in Wonderland, where a girl named Alice falls asleep during a history lesson. And in her dreams that feel really real, because she's asleep, she follows and goes down a rabbit hole. She follows a white rabbit into an alternate universe where nothing makes sense. Basically, everything is inverted. That's key. So what's really interesting about this is the CIA actually declassified a bunch of documents called Operation Alice. And let me show you. So, Alice in Wonderland tactics, right here, done by CIA. And it's basically a confusion technique and also can be used to control the narrative onto an unsuspecting public through the use of psychological operations. Now, what's the point of that? Well, basically, if you're confused and you don't know the truth, you will actually look onto media and government for guidance in the future. And basically, you're able to be controlled much easier. So, it gets even weirder because I found Exercise Alice that was done in 2016, and let me show you. And this leads to Exercise Alice, which is basically a MERS-CoV pandemic modeling exercise done by the UK in February of 2016. Now, other countries had the exact same thing, and you'll also see similar names because it's all connected to mind control and psyops. Now, why would they do that? Why would they need to do this? Everything I've been trying to tell you guys is psychological mind control. They are basically trying to confuse us and make us not listen to our gut instinct so that they can control us more. Now, how do we stop this for the future? Anything that they implement, we are stronger in numbers if we do not comply. They will pump so much fear out there, and they will tell you that everything's collapsing and everything's coming down and all of this bad stuff. Do not be afraid. Always stay in the light, speak your truth, and make sure that you have a group of people around you, whether you're out in the suburbs, whether you're in a really, really urban area, or if you're out in the middle of nowhere like me. Make sure you talk to your neighbors, work together, make sure that you have all the information that you need in order to basically combat what they're trying to do to us. And this is why I always say, do not listen to the media. Do not listen to mainstream media. Follow your gut instinct. Do your own research and make sure that you always stay in the light, and the light is the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Well, yeah, the operations are working on me because I have no idea what's going on. I'm so confused, more confused than I've ever been, I think, on what is actually the truth. I mean, you could say that is a pencil to me, and I wouldn't believe you right now because I just don't know what's what. Be like, no, it's vibrations.
Isto é super estranho. É surreal. Estamos à beira do mar, com a linha do horizonte, e parece umas montanhas de neve. Olha, eu vivo aqui há 36 anos e nunca vi disto. Eia, a sério? O que é isto? Olha, isto é surreal. Eu nunca vi. Isto parece mesmo sei lá, umas montanhas, uns icebergs, uma onda, Olha, é surreal. Não, isto não é normal, não é? Não, isto é um fenómeno. Isto tem que dar na televisão. Esta merda tem que passar no telejornal.
Yeah, I had to show another one because there's loads of videos of this cloud, so I think it's genuine. And what it is, I have no idea. Not in my reality do you have clouds coming in as low as the sea. Very bizarre.
Y'all see this shit right here on live.
Whoa, that's some serious stuff going on right there in the skies. That is either Project Bluebeam, a 4D war going on, and we're just seeing the repercussions of it, some weird stuff in the skies, or AI. I'm not sure what one. I can't help you with that one. So you're going to have to help me. Let me know in the comments.
When the days are cold and the cards are folding, the saints we see are all made of gold. When your dreams are failing, the ones We hail all the worst of all, and the bloods run stale. I wanna hide the truth, I wanna shelter you, but with the beast inside, there's nowhere we can hide. No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come. This is my kingdom come. Who is that about? What are we even singing along to?
That's a very good question. That sounds like we're living on hell on earth already, is what I have deciphered from that. I don't know. Let me know what you think.
Well, Trump just made world peace. The Supreme Court ruled that Trump has the authority as the commander-in-chief of the United States military, that he could do whatever the hell he wants because it is in the Constitution and he is allowed to do that. Thank God. These rogue, uninstalled, corrupt traitor judges in these 5 districts are all going to pay for it. They do not get away with it, and they are corrupt. And she's just pointing out these districts and how corrupt they are. And notice they're all Democratic run. Of course, we know this. Anywho, coming forward, they're going to appoint a special prosecutor for the 2020 election fraud and the COVID scam, which was put into place. It was multi-purposed, but mostly put into place to cheat in the 2020 election. And let me just tell you this, because I say it all the time. All the time. 2020 is not over yet, and they have the people in protective custody who rigged the voting machines. They have them. They have the machines. So all these people who keep saying, it's over, they got away, no. They overthrew the United States government, and that is like dropping a nuclear bomb on our country. It's the same thing. They overthrew our government. That is an act of war, and they do not get away with it. Every person involved, whether you printed ballots, whether you stuffed ballots, any person in any way, shape, or form involved in cheating in that election, and 2024 too, by the way, because they did that too. But 2020, anybody caught, anybody involved is going to prison. It is treason. Trump's not playing around, if you haven't noticed. Also, anybody involved with COVID in any way, shape, or form is going to pay for it. When Trump says we caught them all, we caught them all. This fall is going to be lit. Think military tribunals, and they do not get away with it. There are so many people going to Gitmo. They're going to be floating off the ships that are going to be docked there. There are so many people going to prison. There's going to be military tribunals, and we, the people, will get to see them. We have to be able to see them. So these people and anybody thinking that they're going to run for office and do what they did and overthrow our government will never even think of doing that ever again. These people are going to face either life in prison or the death penalty. Trump is not playing. Praise God for Trump. It's going to be a great year. Just wait.
Wow. It does seem like and feel like a lot of, politicians and celebrities look a lot different, as if they've been replaced. So I can see what is being said. But still, I don't know if it's, if it's just all a show to act like they're the bad guys and then the good guys coming in just to, so you're on the side of the good guy, like the Bible says, for instance. But, you got to, I don't know. This is why I'm so confused, because I just don't know anything.
I'm not supposed to say out loud? Cool, here it is. You've never lived in a singular timeline. Your consciousness is a roaming signal, not a fixed point. And the world, the one you think is solid, is a composite of overlapping data fields that only feel coherent because your brain keeps choosing to see one version at a time. Now here's the actual conspiracy. Open quote. The planet isn't a globe or flat or hollow. It's a kept projected harmonic resonance chamber, a layered multidimensional broadcasting station that changes its form based on the collective frequency of the beings inhabiting it. Close quote. And here's the wild part. All of your memories, deja vu, weird dreams, false nostalgia, strange connections to places you've never been, those aren't spiritual symptoms. Those are signal bleed from timelines your consciousness is already linked to. You remember things that didn't happen in this timeline because they happened in another one that's still running. Every glitch you've ever noticed.
Well, I would have to agree. I feel like we do jump in and out of different timelines.
Today is June 6th, and I've been waiting to release this discovery since January 1st. The reason I'm releasing it now is because the concept of 12 is finally starting to be discussed. This concept is all about shifting dimensions, and it was first theorized by Nikola Tesla, as he believed that each dimension had a specific waveform, and if you matched that waveform, you could enter the dimension, like a key. Here is Tesla's proposed waveform for our world, the third dimension. You double 1 and you get 2, double that and you get 4, double 4 you get 8, double that you get 16, 1 and 6 add to 7, double that you get 14, 1 and 4 add to 5, double that you get 10, 1 and 0 add to 1, leaving out only 3, 6, and 9. Now on January 1st, as I was falling asleep, I pictured a clock, and I noticed this pattern, +1, +2, +3, +4. -1, -2, -3, -4, leaving out only 3, 6, 9, and 12. I realized this was the waveform of the fourth dimension. Tesla's waveform of the third dimension follows the same pattern when you take away the 3. If you add another 3, you will get the fifth dimension, and the pattern continues. If anyone knows how this discovery can be applied, please reach out to me.
What in the magical clock is going on there? I don't know what's happening there, but he's basically saying add 3 every time and you go up a dimension. So 369 is the base reality. 36912, which is the fourth dimension, is a 12-hour clock. Maybe like every dimension you go up, you get extra 3 hours a day. I don't know. If anyone reaches out to him on how to time travel, I think he was asking, or shift dimensions, then please reach out to me.
That? Oh, 3 large creatures were seen in Jerusalem, stirring about and starting a fire? Tell me more. Apparently, 3 ginormous creatures, roughly about 20 to 25 feet tall, were seen stirring the air around, and then shortly after, a fire began. Oh, fun! People said this only lasted for about 10 seconds of the creatures stirring and then starting the fire, and then they disappeared. Okay. They were also described as being human-like, yet having horns on their head. Okay. I'm not sure what we're dealing with here, but let's keep the galactic war in the sky and leave us here on the ground alone. Okay. People heard these beings say, "We'll be back for more." Oh, goody.
25 foot tall. That's very tall with horns. Oh, it sounds like the devil.
If you don't think that the third temple is being built or is already built right now, I have some news for you. There is already the infrastructure in place to support a very rapid prefab, and they're already putting everything in place right now. Check this out. I live in Jerusalem, and I'm going to show you right now that it is happening. And in fact, what you see here is a chairlift that they are putting in to the old city in Jerusalem. It's going to look like this. They're building a whole building. It's called the Kotel elevator. They're building a whole building to take people, see that? They're building a chairlift to take people up to the Temple Mount when the temple, the third temple, is there. And so they have this whole area under construction. I've been here for like a year. They've had a wall there. You can hear the jackhammering during the day. They're ready right here. And then we also have this development. They made road signs that say Harbat Hashem, which means the house of God. Like they're directing people to the third temple already. Like they've already got the signs up. You can see like the Jerusalem sign above it. and then Bet El above that. Like, so this is on the road. I think this is the road to the Dead Sea. So they're already putting all this stuff in place. There's already Jews going up to the Temple Mount and praying, and this has become like a regular thing. And there's also like an institute where it's right across from the chairlift I just showed you, where they have all the stuff for the temple already, like that goes inside the temple that they use to perform all the rituals from Leviticus. So if you guys want, I can do a video. I actually just went there not that long ago, and I can post a video on that. Except Jesus, because he's coming back and he is not going to be the one that sits in this temple. Read Daniel, the book of Daniel, chapter 9. It is not going to be the Messiah who sits in this temple. It's going to be the Antichrist. So do not worship the dude who goes to this temple. We won't be here for it because we'll be in heaven with Jesus at the wedding feast. But just FYI, if you want to get on board that train, accept Jesus into your heart, because time's running out, y'all.
Okay. So yeah, I don't fully understand that video. I didn't know if to put it in or not, but just with the previous video, I thought I'd put it in and someone's going to know what that means. Please help me out in the comment section. Let me know what this means, because I don't fully get it.
I totally get that you're busy. You've got personal things going on in your life, lots of distractions on the news given from the mainstream media. There's a lot going on. But I don't know if you realize this, but it's been over a year since the Georgia Guidestones were blown up, and nobody's talking about it anymore. And if you don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, it's a bunch of tall stone tablets where it has written on them the same exact text in a bunch of different languages. One of the wonderful things that whoever put up this monument thought to put on here was maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. If you do the math, that's like a 90% reduction in the current claimed population of the Earth. But other than just saying some weird stuff like we should kill everybody, it also had some astronomical features. One, the channel through the stone indicates the celestial pole. Polaris. Talk about that in a second. The horizontal slot indicates the annual travel of the sun. And 3, sunbeam through the capstone marks noontime throughout the year. Now, that channel that they were talking about drilled through the rock is this hole right here. And you could have walked up to this hole at any time of the year, day or night, and this hole would be aiming at Polaris, the celestial pole. Riddle me this. How are we supposed to believe this worked if this is the movements of our solar system? The entire solar system is moving 500,000 miles an hour, 4.9 billion miles in a single year through space. We're tilted on an axis, precessing, wobbling, while we're supposed to believe we're orbiting the sun at 66,616 miles an hour on average. And all of the stars above our head are supposed to be expanding away from us from the Big Bang, doing their own individual movements. And we're supposed to believe that we're on a round rock, and we could set a rock on this rock that aims at Polaris 24/7 when we're supposed to be doing this? Someone make sense of this. I know it's a lot to realize that current cosmology is off, but it's actually admitted by people like Michio Kaku, who admit that cosmology, the current cosmology, is off by 10 to 120th power. And this channel and this guidestone right here definitively disproves the ideology which suggests that we're on a spinning magical water ball doing all of these astronomical motions around the sun and through a space vacuum that doesn't exist. This truth, it's uncomfortable. It's gonna really twist and turn your brain. But once you realize that everything is cyclical and the sky is a clock, and the Georgia Guidestones, that horizontal hole that was cut into those stones, it measured the equinoxes and solstices of the year. Why do you think that the sun makes this analemma every year? It makes this infinity shape. And we have to believe that a Mars-sized planet came and hit the Earth and caused all of this cyclicalness? Yeah, right, buddy. The Earth's flat, and we live on the inertial plane or block domain wall of the magnetic perturbation that starts at the center of the Earth. There's no South Pole. And when you look at the movements of the wandering stars or so-called planets, and then you look at a magnetic field, something might be going on. I suggest that maybe the sky moves off magnetism and not gravity. If you'd like to hear me debate this live with scientists, pseudoscientists, globe zealots, and all of the likes, you're going to need to follow all 3 of these channels that I've tagged here down at the bottom. I debate on all 4 of them because I am extremely censored for this information. Share this video. Get it out to the people. Let's prove to everybody that God's true creation is a level topographical plane with the stars and this moon and the sun moving above us. We are not moving. Good one.
Yeah. Well, if it points at that star 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, then how does that do that if we live on a ball? Impossible, right?
What if millions of us stopped working, stopped spending, and stopped producing all at the same time? There's a movement brewing. It's called the People's Sick Day, and what it is a 3-day economic blackout. That means no work, no shopping, no production, just pause. 3 days where we remind the system that without us, nothing moves. But here's the twist. We're not giving out the dates until 48 hours before because we don't want to give the corporations time to plan and stop us from having this happen. Because let's be honest, if they knew what we were planning, they'd shut it down before it even started. This isn't a protest. This is a strategic disruption to the machine that feeds off of our hard work and labor. If you want to be a part of it, go to thepeoplesickday.com, join the Discord, and join the movement. This is how we stand up against what is happening in our country. We need to shut it down. We need to shut it down. So go to thepeoplesickday.com, sign up for the Discord, and you can get more information there.
Not country. It's all over the world. Sounds like a good idea to me. Is he saying that Squid Games is based on a true story?
Here is another view of the firmament.
Whoa, if that's real, then that is bonkers.
That is like literally the creepiest thing I've ever seen. No, it's changing. There's lights in the sky too.
That one's got to be AI. Surely people would be going wild if that was happening in front of them, right? What in the black magic have I just witnessed there?
I'm in Lublin in Poland, and this is one of these portals that is hooked up to Vilnius here. So I'm in Poland, and this is Lithuania, just on the other side. Let's see if anybody's going to wave to us. Hello, they're waving. So you stand here and wave to people or send them kisses. Very cool. Hi. And it's in this square here because this is where the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth Agreement, sort of a forerunner to the European Union, was signed in the mid-1500s. So Poland and Lithuania have that link, and so they put this portal up here, which is super cool.
I'll stay there. So.
He's taking a selfie with them.
Yeah. I reckon there's versions of them where you can see into the future or see into the past or see into alternate realities.
A very small number of criminal industrial conspirators decided to subordinate the entirety of the human population for the purpose of their sinister plans to enrich themselves while impoverishing and killing the rest of humanity. And I'm done being polite. We've long passed polite. When the words acceptable death rate become part of an industrial norm, we have lost the plot of humanity. And that's not my words. Those were the words of the World Health Organization and of Pfizer and of Moderna when they were given the authorization to begin the process of killing human beings in the interest of advancing their goals. Next slide. And I'm also not going to sugarcoat this. This is a criminal cartel. We are acting as though there's some sort of redeemable quality somewhere in some esoteric layer that somehow or another the World Health Organization must have some salutatory benefit. Well, I'm going to tell you, since its formation in the 1940s, the World Health Organization has been nothing more than a criminal cartel that has a sole and singular intent. And I will show you the document that proves what I'm saying. This is not an allegation. This is actually provable by their own words in their own hand. And they use a four-step process to execute every one of their nefarious plans. They begin by planning an exercise, then they go to the business of funding that exercise, then they create the rationale for the thing that they're going to do, and then they deploy and profit from it. And in violation of 15 U.S. Code Section 19, which for those of you listening, coincidentally started with the Clayton Act in the same year that the World Health Organization in the United States, 1913, the same year the World Health Organization's progenitors also started. So I find it fascinating that we passed the Clayton Act in 1913 and we set in motion 110 years ago the criminal conspiracy which we now call the World Health Organization. 110 years later. And in violation of TIFU, or TEFU, I don't even know how to say it, the TFEU, the treaty allegedly for the functioning of the European Union, which I think needs to now be called the Treaty for the Dysfunctional European Cabal, Article 101 unambiguously lays out the conditions that this was never a public health anything. It was racketeering for the purpose of instilling terror to adapt the behavior of a population, period. That's what it was. That's what it always was. And we can come up with every theoretical argument we want to make about things, but the problem, even with the theory that we had an outbreak of something, is falsifiable for the data from Zurich that shows us that in the year of the death pandemic of the globe, life insurance companies paid $30 billion less in claims. Now, if there's a medical professional or a social professional or anybody else who wants to debate that we could develop a virus cunningly that could find out your bank account, your insurance policy statements, and whether you're paid up on your premiums, that's a big ask. It turns out that the data is unambiguous. We did not have a pandemic. We had genocide. And we need to call it what it is. Next slide. When I say we planned it, let's make sure we understand exactly the not so fine print of the fine print. And I want to call your attention first to the right-hand column of this slide. This is the 2011 data that the World Health Organization, the Wellcome Trust, PATH, and the Gates Foundation did on their wonderful worldwide program for a malaria vaccine for children under the age of 6 months of age. And in their clinical trial, it's helpful to point out that they murdered 66 children in the vaccine group and then cunningly used the term control for a control group in which they murdered 28 children. Now, the reason I said murdered and the reason why I use that term is because it's exactly what it was. Because it turns out that this control group was not a saline injection. It was not some sort of innocuous, innocent thing. It was actually a cocktail of other known pathogenic disease-carrying injections. The control group was known to kill people, and the experimental control group was actually theoretically maybe going to kill people. And what we did was we actually went ahead and murdered them all. And cunningly, under Article 5, Section 13, which I've put on this slide, I want you to understand why I said at its formation in 1947, when the WHO was funded and founded, it was funded and founded by people intent to commit a crime because of their own language. Section 13 of Article 5 ends with the following statement: immunity from personal arrest or detention, blah, 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 immunity from legal process of every kind. Now, if you didn't intend to commit a crime, why would you need to give yourself permanent and absolute immunity from every form of prosecution, and it's worse, even investigation for prosecution of every kind? People sit there and pretend, well, that's like diplomatic immunity. Do you realize this isn't even meeting the standard of diplomatic immunity? This is a criminal organization who set in motion their own law to protect themselves against crimes they knew they were going to commit. And when I say they knew they were going to commit, I mean they knew it. Because their first Director General, none other than Dr. René Sand, who happened to be in the hospitality of the Germans in Dachau in 1940 earlier, in 1947, mysteriously, with the largesse of the Rockefeller Foundation, was nominated to become the first Director General of the WHO. And within 5 short years, René Sand decided to authorize the real purpose of the WHO in writing by then Director General Dr. Brock Chisholm, who advocated for population control as its primary objective. Does that sound like public health to anyone in this room? This is not public health. This is the advancement of the same genocidal program that began with the Carnegie Foundation's funding of the eugenics office at Cold Spring Labs in the United States in 1913 under the philanthropy of Andrew Carnegie. People, stop fooling yourself. We debate the leaves on the tree of what we call this pandemic thing, but we're not going to the root. This was an organized crime, racketeering entity set up to give itself first absolute immunity and then execute its plans to make sure it controls who lives, who dies, and who gets any chance at life. And if you think that I am somehow inflating numbers, let me be unambiguous. Under every treatment of tax provision, if I were to tell you that there is an 88% controlling interest of any organization, you might conclude that that actually aggregates into a controlling interest. And it turns out that if we look at the foundation donations to the World Health Organization, 88% of those come from a single organization, the Gates Foundation. That constitutes a violation of every competitivist law in Europe and every competitivist law in the United States. This is absolutely not only not an independent, charitably funded donation, but more importantly, under the tax laws on both sides of the Atlantic, this constitutes directed donations which specifically are forbidden and do not have any place anywhere in the Charter of the World Health Organization or any of the UN-affiliated organizations. When I say this is a crime, I mean it's a tax crime, a racketeering crime, a money laundering crime, and now the crime of racketeering leading to murder and global terrorism. Next slide. I told you that the second thing after they plan it is they fund it. And why don't we use the criminals' language in their own words, because it's the best way to say it. When they actually planned the release of the use of a biologically modified chimera associated with the model derived from coronavirus, they actually said the following: to sustain the funding base beyond the crisis, we need to increase the public understanding for the needful medical countermeasures such as a pan-influenza or pan-coronavirus vaccine. Now, let me pause for just one moment and remind you that the crisis that they were speaking of was a crisis of diminishing funding. There was no health crisis. This was a crisis of their coffers were starting to run dry. That's the crisis. And let's read on. A key driver is the media, and the economics will follow the hype. We need to use that hype to our advantage to get to the real issues. Investors will respond if they see profit at the end of the process. That is officially the statement made by the conspiratorial cabal that by that time was the decade of vaccines put in motion in 2011 by the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board of the World Health Organization, and it was the funding base for Peter Daszak's partnership with the chimeric production of pathogens both in North Carolina and in Wuhan. So don't tell me that we have to do an investigation into where this came from. The criminals have admitted to it in their own words. Next slide. And now we get the fun one that no one in Congress is willing to address, which is the elephant in the room. On October the 21st, 2014, despite the multiple conversations between Senator Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci, where we've been told that Rand Paul has done everything he can to put Fauci on the ropes, he has had in his possession the letter that you see on the left. And it is the letter, conveniently on NIAID letterhead, sent to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which unambiguously states that during the gain-of-function moratorium, which, by the way, if we use the word moratorium, feels like that means you're supposed to stop. Why don't we go ahead and look at two pieces of this letter. First, the second bullet under Project One, which, by the way, was not part of the original grant. This was to look at the novel functions of the virus pathogenesis in vivo. You know what that means? In living systems. The grant was supposed to be clinical simulations and models, but this grant was modified with this letter to say we were going to authorize gain-of-function research during the moratorium in living systems. And then we love the last paragraph of this letter, which conveniently says, as your grant is currently funded, this pause is voluntary. How many times have you met a voluntary moratorium? And the best part about it is that if we look at the very last line, or continue to conduct the applicable gain-of-function research until the end of the currently active budget period. But here comes the problem. You know who is supplying the budget? An indefinite term, unlimited amount contract from DARPA and from NIH. Isn't it convenient to have a perpetually funded project that needs to stop when the money runs out, when you find out that there is no point where the money runs out because there is no end to the thing that has no end? Unless you think that I'm making an allegation, which I'm not, I'm making an accusation. Let's be clear. And there's a big difference. I'm not alleging anything. They actually went to the trouble of telling us that it was going to be the Wuhan virus that was going to get us. As you see on the right-hand side of the screen, published in 2016, March 14th of 2016, the SARS-like Wuhan Institute of Virology Virus 1, and I quote, is poised for human emergence. Does that sound like we're just surprised that something in Wuhan went a little haywire in December of 2019? Or does it feel like we were told, look at Wuhan, and look at coronavirus, and look at what we've been doing to manipulate coronavirus in Wuhan and at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and lo and behold, we're going to go ahead and tell you that we're ready to release it in 2016. Next slide. We're almost done. And then they created it. Now, all of you know that I am criticized globally for my use of the term biological warfare. I do that because I am credentialed to do that. I happen to be, for the United States government, in the early part of the 2000s and the latter part of the 90s, a person who was sent around the world to look at the proliferation of biological and chemical weapons. I'm acutely familiar with the definition of what a biological warfare agent is in the 18 U.S. Code, the criminal code of violations of biological and chemical weapons. And so my assessment is, in fact, professional and right. And the reason for that is I'm the one credentialed to make that determination for the United States government for many years. That's why I say it. But let's pretend for the moment that I'm just a nut job. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. So why don't we look at what the criminals said themselves, shall we? In 2005, at a conference sponsored by DARPA and the MITRE Corporation, Ralph Barrick, the architect of the lethal strand that has been injected into millions and billions of people's arms, that Ralph Barrick was sponsored to present the following, and let's go ahead and use his words, presentation: synthetic coronaviruses, biohacking, bio-warfare enabling technologies. Does that sound like a public health distribution program? Does that sound like something that is accidentally misinterpreted to mean something else? Or does biological warfare enabling technologies sound like not countermeasures or pandemic preparedness? It sounds to me like biological warfare enabling technologies. And the reason why I have that hunch is what followed was he received, next to his NIAID grants, non-competitive DARPA grants in matching funds for over $140 million of aggregate funding going into his and his related programs on synthetic biological warfare enabling technologies. So do I have a problem calling the injection a biological warfare enabling technology? Absolutely not, because that's what they called it. And we know that they knew they called it that on September 18th, 2019. Because on September 18th, 2019, the racketeering, co-conspiring cabal of interlocking directorates, also known as the World Health Organization, said that they were going to conduct an experience for the world that was going to be a rapidly spreading pandemic due to a lethal respiratory pathogen. The lethality in that statement is the problem. They didn't say we're going to maybe get a little bit of sniffles going around. They said we were going to actually have the promulgation of a deadly agent. And the stated reason, in September 2020, the progress indicator is that the world would accept a universal vaccine. Not, we'll look at other options of treatment. Not, we'll have a look at what might be early intervention, as Dr. McCullough has so clearly advocated for in many, many, many instances. Not that. We stated on September 18th, 2019, we were intending to kill. And we were intending to kill to create the fear that would drive people to accept something that without coercion, no one would have accepted. And that's published by the criminal racketeers. Next slide, and there's only 2 to go if you're following. Deploy and profit from it. We were told investors will respond if they see profit at the end of the process, and lo and behold, guess what they saw? Profit at the end of the process. 2022, $100 billion for Pfizer of public funds. Moderna, after lying to the Congress in October of 2020 when they were asked to actually verify whether NIAID was promoting an injection that would enrich NIAID, where Anthony Fauci and the entire team at NIH said that they had no financial interest in their recommendation, they receive a back payment royalty of $400 million for the first payment of the royalty. $400 million. More than any Institute of Health has ever received in a single payment for a single invention in the history of American medical research. And lo and behold, what do we receive after that? A request from the World Health Organization to expand its budget by 11% to make sure that the people who profited from it donate to it. And guess what they just did? They laundered the money right back. That's what they did. Next, and now you get the final slide. This is not a public health crime. This is actually not a constitutional crime. This is a criminal act done by a criminal institution established to enable criminal behavior since its foundation in 1947. That is what this is. And we should not be debating the merits of democracy or liberty or anything else, as irrational as that would be if we stood at a bank robbery and debated the merits of printing dollar bills. The problem is not the dollar bills, it's the bank robber. And the problem here is not health, and it's not public health, and it's not the suppression of information and the suppression of dissident views and the absolute unconscionable treatment of physicians around the world and academicians around the world who spoke out against this. That's not the crime. The crime is that we had criminal racketeers who conspired and developed a, quote, emergency. The same criminal racketeers planned, manufactured, and did all agency capture to make sure that you were told that you would use terms that they tell you to use. Vaccine, face mask, health, social distancing, none of which had ordinary use definition. So we just used them. Criminal racketeers price fixed with interlocking directorates where known competitors came together and fixed prices in direct collusion in violation of both European Union standards and in violation of both the Sherman and the Clayton Act in the United States. These were crimes. It was organized crime, and we should treat it as such. Criminal racketeers publicly lied under oath, and this resulted in the death and destruction of liberty, and most importantly, the death and destruction of the integrity of well-meaning people who sit here today doing everything they can within their power to try to treat the calamities created by this catastrophe. I will not for a moment denigrate the multiple contributions of amazing academic and medical professionals who've tried desperately to step into the gap and stop the corrupt outcomes of these crimes. But I will, without doubt, say the following. Until we treat this as a criminal conspiracy of criminal racketeers resulting in global terrorism for the purpose of profiteering and murder, until we have that conversation, we're having the wrong conversation. Because we are not here to debate the merits of a modified agreement for a criminal racketeering organization. We are here to end the criminal organization itself. This is my call to every single person on this planet. Don't just limit the power of the WHO. Destroy the WHO. Thank you very much.
Whoa, okay, that is a deep video, people, which is definitely going to put up some red flags in there. So, you know, do your own research. It is for entertainment purpose only. None of it's verified as true. And for that note of the entertainment purposes on this video, yeah, do your own research. And that is also the end of the show, Pete. So thank you for watching. Appreciate the support, and I'll see you again tomorrow.